right, everyone, let's get this going. I want to, first of all, thank our panelists for taking the time to join us tonight. We have a ton of questions from the registration form, but please don't let that stop you from getting your own questions in. We will go straight to those right after these introductions. So, want to go ahead and let these coaches, administrators, legal counsel, whatever their role might be, introduce themselves. We are going to start with Coach Murphy. And panelists, you did come in on mute, so you might need to unmute. But Coach Murphy, go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe one tip for the preseason that you love to do. We'll get started with just a little, like a fun fact preseason wise.
Okay. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks for everybody joining us. And I want to say congrats to Mr. Coach Reed here on his Hall of Fame for next year. So kudos to you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I think probably the biggest thing for me is, after doing this for now 35 years, I was hired at age 14. Joanna, you know that. But I wish somebody would have told me this 25 years ago. College kids are going to screw up. They're going to do something wrong. They're going to have issues in their life. It's going to happen. Okay. It's going to happen. There's never utopia in any season. Okay. The 4 stages of team building is forming, norming, storming, and hopefully the 4th, and that's in May, performing. Every single year you go through those 4 stages, no matter how good a team you have, no matter how bad a team you have, no matter how many newcomers or returnees, you go through those 4 stages every single year. Thanks for having me.
Love it, Coach. Thanks for joining us for sure. I thought you were 10, so I don't know, but Coach Perry, I've got you next.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you tonight, and was super excited that Joanna invited me to this panel. My name is Tyra Perry. I'm the head softball coach at the University of Illinois. I'm actually going into my 10th year there in 24 years, not quite as old as Murph, but or seasoned, I should say, as Murph. But I've really enjoyed all of my time, and I've learned over the years that it's okay to let the team get to know you, get to know your personality. It helps you know them, and we can do that. You can do that in a variety of ways. And I've always thought, I started out young, so I always thought I had to kind of keep a little bit of separation, but and definitely there's a professional separation, but it's okay to be yourself.
Love that, Coach. Thank you so much. Coach Reed.
Well, yeah, Mike Reed from the University of Texas at Tyler, year 21 here. Really excited to be here tonight. What a group. I'm very honored to be among this group of people here. So I'm going to learn as much as I say, I'm sure. My tip would be, I'm a list guy, so just early season thing. Excel sheets save the world for me. So, I would challenge you, especially newer coaches, but now that I'm older, I forget. So I need to list even more, probably when I started, but just a list of every situation, travel list, just create that Excel sheet. And so every year you're fine tuning that, but a list of the things you want covered before the first game, important situations, things that come up in the game or in a practice or a scrimmage, add that to your list. I think you can grow each year you go, you can add a lot to the list and make sure everything's covered, or as much as you can.
Thank you very much. Coach Troyan.
Joanna, thank you so much for having me on, and welcome everybody. I'm looking forward to really learning from everybody. And I know that it's kind of a saying out there that a lot of people are talking about right now, but I really feel like going into a season open-minded with a growth mindset is really, really important. I started coaching a long time ago, about the same time as Murph. I think that President Lincoln just was shot shortly before we started. And, if you did a pie chart and you had a little sliver in the pie, when I first started, I thought that I knew the big piece of the pie. Now that I've been doing it for 35 years, I know that I only know a sliver, and there's so much more for me to to learn. So having a growth mindset, and I love what Coach Perry said, be who you are and be that well.
Thank you very much. I should just call you Coach too, Keely, Coach McMillan. I think it sounds great. You do your fair share of coaching, but go ahead and introduce yourself and your role.
Yeah, hi everyone, and Joanna, thank you so much for asking me to be on this, and everyone else. I'm excited to take some notes as well, to help our staff just as well. So I'm Keely McMillan. I'm the Director of Operations here at the University of Texas. Going into my 5th year here, 12th year in operations overall. Had a couple other stops along the way. I'm going to take Coach Reed's lead there in lists, being a big part of what I do, but probably not the X's and O's part. It's the making sure we have everything ready to roll next week when we take off. So, on those lists right now, it's, making sure I have the bat list ready, making sure like all those simple things that you don't think about until later on. So trying to just make sure that I have all that stuff down and ready to roll.
Thank you very much. Maybe the most important job, that organizational piece. And, it's like a catcher or first baseman. When you don't notice them, that's because they're amazing, right? And so Keely's an awesome member and love the education she brings for all of our ops people. And then I can say Coach Van Vlymen as well. But Holly, go ahead and fill in the group with your role.
Sure. Holly Van Vlymen. So I am now the Senior Associate Athletic Director at South Dakota State University in the SWA. I coached Division I softball for 16 years prior to getting into the dark side, I guess, of the athletic world, as some people would say. But I'm thrilled to be here. I was very honored when I got the call from Joanna to be like, hey, do you want to be on this call? It's good to see some familiar softball faces. I mean, it was their family for so many years. So the one thing I remember from coaching at the beginning of the year is, remember, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So you just got to keep on rolling. And, it may not start off great, but, you just keep rolling and making adjustments. And, by the end of the season, hopefully, like Murph said, you're performing. So
Thank you very much, and thrilled to have you working with the NCAA committee this year and just staying with the sport. So happy to have that in your repertoire. And then Samantha, last but definitely not least, go ahead and fill in the group.
Not a softball coach, but get to serve and support softball coaches. Thrilled to be here. My name is Samantha Extra, and I get to serve as the NFCA legal counsel. So I talk to coaches every day, and sometimes all day, and sometimes into the night. I'm so excited for you all. I'm so excited to see you all out on the field doing what you do. I think my tidbit to start is, the NFCA is full of resources to support you. While you're on those bus rides or on those flights or waiting for the airport, check out the website and the podcasts and the webinars and the preseason or season manual, all the things there. We really do try to think of the things that will help you do your job well. And so this is one of them. And I'm just really happy to be here and to listen and learn myself.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining. We've got a couple of questions in right now, and we will start rolling through those. We will pose questions to just a couple of the panelists so that we get through as many opportunities as we have, but we're going to let them jump in anytime as well. So everyone feel free to throw your microphone off and just have at it. But one thing that we got a lot of questions about was being a role player and helping student athletes understand that role and really embrace the role. And I know people use different terms for it. So let's go ahead and talk about maybe how you address that with your student athletes. When do you start talking about it? And what are the expectations with that? But let's have Coach Murphy and Coach Troyan take this one to start.
Murph, I'll go ahead and start, and then you can just go ahead and add in. I feel like it's got to be a part of what you do from the very beginning, and do it really on a daily basis. Just by acknowledging little things that some of the players do at various points in time. It could be as simple as kind of picking up the ball buckets and getting them to the vans, or it could be as simple as just making sure that the trainer has his or her equipment that's on the bus, just kind of doing the little things and acknowledging that in front of the team. And I just had a conversation yesterday, with my team, because, in the fall, it's really easy because everybody gets to play. In the spring, it's not the same. And I talked about, a championship that we won probably about 25 years ago when somebody called runner with a runner stealing third base to end the game and win the championship. And had that person not called runner and everybody would have been asleep, we would not have won that championship. We probably would have lost that championship. So, just affirming that every role is critical, and doing that on a daily basis so that they see that it's important to you. Hopefully, it will make it important to the whole team.
Amen to all that. I think one of the things, we have 20 on the roster this year. And every single year, I say this early in the fall, every single one of you will win a game for us somehow, some way, hitting, fielding, pitching, pinch running, something. You will win a game for us. Okay. That's number one. Second thing is everybody's ring is the same size. The starting pitcher doesn't get a bigger ring because she's a starting pitcher, and the pinch runner gets a smaller ring. Everybody on the team is valued, needed, wanted, and most of all, appreciated. So they have to know that from the very beginning. And then probably the biggest thing is we tell everybody there's 1,000 different ways to help a team win other than being on the field. They don't know that. They don't realize that. They think the only way they help a team win is to be on the field. And that is not the case. I think another part of that is you have to convince the parents that that is true. Because when you convince the parents that their daughter does not have to be on the field to help a team win, it goes a lot better. So when we have a parent brunch in the fall before a fall ball game, that point is hammered home over and over and over. So that'd be a couple of my things.
Well, let's stick on that playing time, Murph, because I know it's so important and gets just really convoluted often. We'll shift to Coach Reed and Coach Perry, but when do you start talking about playing time? Do you set expectations? Sometimes it changes, right? You can have someone who doesn't play at all February, March, and then all of a sudden, they're moving into a different type of role. Coach Reed, let's have you start. How does that work with you, and how do you communicate that with your team?
Well, I think one of the things is truly making sure that they believe the competition, and the opportunity is always there, that never closes. I think that's important for us. I think going back to Coach Murphy's point too, I think they don't echo that too. I don't think they realize the roles. One of the things we did the other day was we stood on the foul line, and every player had to name a role other than starting. And they struggled at first, and then they started thinking, and it opened up. And every time they said one, they went kind of over the line, and then as the whole team said it, we came back across the line. So for us, it was a really good illustration. I think we got to 55 or 60 pretty quickly. And so we just pointed out, how many did we just name that were not starting on the field? So they quickly just saw, there's so many other ones. We chart a lot too, and really try to keep, statistically from the playing side of it, that the meetings and constantly have those fall meetings. I think clarity and being open with the stats and the way things are going, and I think helps with that if they see that and have those meetings along the way of where they're performing. And then if you're in the trenches with them to help them, as far as it's always open, the competition's there. And then one of the things we do just to help with that is every Monday, the team coming off a weekend, we inter squad, even if it's just for a couple of innings with those who didn't get as much opportunity during the weekend. And sometimes it's 2 innings, sometimes it's 4, but the opportunity to get game reps. So we tell them that we value that, and the opportunity will still come. That one game that Coach Murph talked about, getting some live at bat. So we do budget that in to help with that as well.
Thank you. Coach Perry.
I think that may be one of the more difficult conversations to have. And the way you approach it is very important. And all of the information that's come forth already is very useful. I'm actually typing a few notes here myself from what has been said. But I think we always talk about, getting out of yourself and into the team, and just kind of we kind of branch off of that in our conversations. Some of them are open team conversations. Some of them are one-on-one conversations. And, I say this a lot, please do not put myself, or staff, your teammates in a lose-lose situation in which you're not, being realistic, or, or if information was given to you in regards to playing time or role, and you say that you accept it, and then you, kind of backtrack from that. So we talk about just being forthright, and that we're having these open, honest conversations up front so that you can be informed. It may or may not be what you want, but it's better than hiding the ball. And, so we just try to emphasize that. And then we also do what a lot of teams do at the end of the fall. We have a, inter squad, Illini World Series, or whatever you want to, there's a bunch of different names for them out there, or orange and blue for us. And we have our upperclassmen, our seniors, they are the coaches. So what that does, it kind of shows us, what they think. They do the roster, the lineups, they play, who's playing all the innings, who do they put in when the game's on the line. And the coaches, we're in the stands like we're scouts, and we're taking notes and things like that. But pitching changes, they have signal cards, so they're calling the hit and runs and all those things. So we learn a lot just about the inner workings of the team and what they really think about who should be starting and who's doing what when we do that. So
I love it. That's a great idea. Samantha, just a quick volley over to you. You're hearing the conversations with playing time and roles. I know that's got to be a big part of things you hear. What tips would you add?
I mean, this is the song I hear the most, and I hear it through the season and at the end. Playing time, lack of playing time, I think, is the basis of the super majority of complaints that come against coaches, right? And sometimes it's cloaked in something else, like doesn't like me, mental health, whatever it is. But at its root, it's players not getting the playing time that they think they've earned, they think they've deserved, they expect. I think this is a lot about expectations and when an experience falls short of expectations. So I think all the ideas and suggestions that have been discussed about setting those expectations, framing them, showing value in the different roles on a team. We talk about, should we use role? Does it seem too limiting? What's your contribution? People like to feel valued. What I really want coaches to think about is you want your players to want playing time, right? Like wanting playing time is not a bad thing. And let's be real, I'm a parent and I was at a basketball game last night and I wanted my kid to get in too. Like it is normal. Like that's not the issue. It's how it's managed and communicated. And at the end, your players spend a lot of time dedicated to softball, practicing, lifting, traveling, all of it. At some point they do want to feel like it matters. And so if you're a coach that's, taking these ideas or have your own about how to make a player feel like it's worthwhile, that they're important, that they are part of the win, that goes a long way. But I think, what Tyra was saying, having the conversations, what Fran was saying, having them, early and not being afraid of them, when somebody wants to come to your office and have a meeting and listening, and then being caring and compassionate, but also sometimes direct, yes, this is what you should expect. You are going to travel on an airplane this weekend, go, and you are probably not going to see the field, but we want you there. You're important to us, and let's talk about that. I think is important. But if you're having playing time issues, later on with kids, I would love to talk to you about how to manage them. But this is it, friends. Like this is, if I had a list of complaints and reasons for complaints, this is at the very top. So how you think about it and approach it and manage it is really important.
I think number one, too, is you have to be honest with them. Joe Madden, who's a Major League Baseball manager, my favorite quote from him was, if you're honest with them, they might hate you for a day. But if you lie to them, they're going to hate you forever. So number one, be completely honest. And you say to the kid, honesty for greatness. Okay. Or can you handle 30 seconds of embarrassment for a lifetime of learning? Because what I'm about to tell you, you might be embarrassed for 30 seconds, but you will learn for a lifetime if you go with this advice. You have to be honest, number one. And sometimes you got to have the tough conversation. And I think that's another thing that I wish I would have learned early is be able to have the one-on-one conversation. I wouldn't do it in front of the whole team. I don't do that, but one-on-one with a kid, this is where I see you. This is what you need to get better at. And then hopefully you're going to do all those things. And then the other part of it is, and a lot of you have seen this, but the pinch hit grand slam at the World Series by a kid from Alabama who was a freshman, she hadn't gotten a hit in a game since April. And the night she hit it was May 30th. So she hadn't got a hit for 2 months, but she worked her ass off over and over and over. She came early, she stayed late, and she was ready for her opportunity. So the other thing I would say to a kid is, look, you don't know when your opportunity is, but if you get it, you better be ready. Because if you're not ready, it's going to show as soon as you step in the box.
Yeah, really good stuff. Holly, I'm guessing, and public apology to Holly, I've been trying to change her name for like 20 minutes here. It's an EN at the end. So if you're going to try to email her later, I don't know how I auto corrected that. I've only known her for a couple decades, but it is MEN. So public apology. But Holly, you get the phone calls from parents, or you get the kid that comes in your office. My coach doesn't like me. From an administrator perspective, what are some things that you've seen or advice you would give to coaches on maybe ways that they can deal with those things effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that happens if I have a student athlete or a parent call me is the first question I ask is, have you or has your child talked to your coach? Because if that hasn't happened, then you need to go do that first. And then you can come back if you've had that conversation and things still maybe aren't going, the way that you may think that they should go. But I think that's a key part of things, is that there has to be that communication between the student athlete and the coach, because especially at the college level. Now, if you're talking high school or whatever, then it gets a little bit different. But I think once they go to college, like, they need to learn how to talk for themselves, because they're going to be going into the real world after this, and they're going to have hard discussions with their supervisors or coworkers or different things like that. And this is just a part of the learning curve. I think another thing that I try to do is to, mediate situations if I have to understand it's not personal. It's not that coach doesn't like you or anything like that. It's, it comes down to certain things. And for parents, especially, we're not at practice. I'm not at practice. They're not at practice. They don't know what happens. Same thing with off the field things. Like, sometimes they may not know some of the things that are happening behind the scenes. And when you get to college, there's this thing called FERPA. And so sometimes you can't share things because they're adults, and, if they have issues, then they need to talk to their parents about it. So there are things that, I kind of have the parents too talk to your student athlete. Maybe that's some prying questions to them. How did we get down this road? Have you been doing all the right things? Have you been following the rules? Have you talked to coach? Because I think that's where it all kind of goes to.
Thank you very much. Switching gears a little bit, something else that gets coaches maybe a little pit in their stomach later in the year is the budget, right? Budget management and staying on top of that. Keely, I know you do a ton of that. What are some of the ways that you have found to stay on top of budget, to find cost savings? And for those of you laughing right now saying, oh, they're Texas, they don't, look, guys, nobody has enough money. It doesn't matter who you are, nobody has enough. So what are you doing, Keely, that helps you stay on top and in the black?
Yeah, whether people want to believe it or not, we do have a budget and we do have to follow our budget. I know a lot of people laugh at me whenever I say that, but we have a budget. I oversee our budget. I am in it every day. So whenever we build out our budget and our requests and everything, we get those approvals back, in the summertime, early fall. I take all of those requests that we put in specifically. I see that, Murph. I put all those requests that we build out in the budget templates and everything that is, business office. I take those over into Excel. I live in Excel. Everything I do is in Excel. It's how my brain works the best. But I build those all out per trip. So I know exactly what we budgeted for each flight, each, hotel, each meal, everything. Like, we have our standard things that we can only budget for, as far as like a room rate up to a certain dollar amount, unless you're in a high cost city. But I take all of those out and I build out another template for myself that I've just found that works for me. And then I just track every single expense that's on the cards when we go on a trip. So I write it all down keep track of it. And then, I have it set formulas and stuff in Excel where it shows me if I was positive or negative. So I know if I need to save money on another trip, I have money to play with, whatever it is, I kind of already have that stuff built out. I've also found that really helps me. We had a situation this year, a budget thing come up, and I can just go back as historical data of just being like, this is how much this type of a trip has cost us in the past. I'm not making numbers up. This is what it was. And I can tell them exactly what year and the dates, if the dates are a little off, if it's shifted or anything. So it's just kind of like a backing for me. And I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to our budget is like just having a really good rapport with our business office. Right before I jumped on this call, I was talking to one of our business office people, just having that bond with them and just being able to like be upfront and honest. Like if we're gonna have an issue, I'm not gonna hide from it, and just have the conversation ahead of time, and just get on the same page with them. I think that's the best way that I've found.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I love the in it every day, right? You can't ignore it. It's like culture. You work on it every day, and it's a quick way to get yourself either in trouble or in good graces, one or the other. Speaking about in trouble, how about those trouble parents? Fran, let's go to you. You can start with this one, but the parent that you just have a feeling this is just gonna be sticky. How do you start pulling them closer, or do you take a different route?
Sorry, I accidentally just muted myself. Yeah, I think that it's such an important thing, and it's just like with your players. I think that you have to develop a relationship with each and every parent. And, my perspective on things has really changed as I have raised, three athletes who are all really pretty good athletes. And, my daughter's playing volleyball at the college level. And, the one thing that really happens is that, there's, 15 kids on the team, but every parent's only looking really at their own kid, and so trying to understand things a little bit more from the parent's perspective, um, having some grace with the parents to begin with, knowing, that their daughter's probably the most important person in their life kind of right now. So, what I honestly try to do is have, strong relationships with each and every one of the parents, and go out of my way to ask questions, of the parents, about any health situations that might come up with one, with their daughter, or with anything like that. So, yeah, and the other thing too is that, it's a little bit different too. If a parent does want to talk to me, I always try to talk to them, but if it is a playing time issue, I let them know that, it's something that should be handled by and between the coach and the player.
And Coach Perry, you mentioned a little bit too earlier about just some things that you do in your program. How about with the parents? Do you send a letter? Do you have a meeting? What are some things that you're doing with that specific group?
Well, we were actually contemplating our last staff meeting about having a parent meeting because we have 13 newcomers on our team and doing a parent Zoom. But we ultimately decided to just continue with the letter. We send a letter out every year, and I just may circle back, and maybe try to talk to some parents while we're there. But it's a tough topic. Um, we definitely want to keep the business trip atmosphere going. We had a pretty good run of that, and now I'm just like, I don't know what's going to happen. We have 13 new people, is it going to turn into like a party in the lobby, or like what's going to go on, or people going to have other expectations. But we've had really distinct, direct conversations with our team and players in regards to just, what the road is like. And, please make sure that you're talking to your parents, that we're going to send a parent letter. Please follow up with them, to make sure that they have received it. And the parent letter basically says what I just said, that, hey, we love you guys. You're a part of this, you're part of this journey. We've always traveled well. We look forward to seeing you whenever your schedule allows. However, this is a business trip. We're gonna make as much time as we can and carve out, time whenever we can, to have you, join us in any sort of thing that, that's appropriate. But for the most part, we have to prepare for the games first.
Thank you very much. Murph, you mentioned a parent brunch earlier. What are some of the things that you have done parent-wise that you think has been helpful with your program?
Well, in the fall, at a fall ball game, we tell the girls we'd really like at least one of the parents to come. And then we do a meet and greet. Everybody introduces everybody's guests. And then I dismiss the players to go take batting practice before the game. And then the coaching staff kind of basically reshares the recruiting topics that we use when they came for official visit. And there's always newbies, because a lot of the, if you got a transfer, she might have missed some of that stuff because it happens so fast. A lot of our transfer visits is less than 24 hours. So I want to make sure. And, one of the byproducts of transfers is like I have 3 one-year players. So I've got them for 10 months. And one of them asked me the other day, how do you squeeze in 4 years and 10 months? And I said, we got to do it. We got to do it. So I think one of the good parts of it is I have to be very intentional about our culture in 10 months because I don't get her for 4. So we have to almost like zoom through it. And, I feel like I've got to teach her this and this and this and this and this, and they might be overloaded, but also goes to the parents because I want them to hear all those talks as well. So, and, one year I said, well, we got to go batting practice. And as I'm running up the stairs of the stadium, I get a tug on my shirt. And one of the moms says, thank you for that. I think we needed to hear that. So it was a good, it made me feel good. And then like Tyra said, we still send out a parent letter. I typed it up today. I'm going to send it to the assistants for any editorial comments or whatever. And then we email it to everybody because we leave next Thursday. So it's like a week away. So I try to get it to everybody. I also send it to the girls. So I have a copy I send to Mr. and Mrs. Lane, and then I send it to your daughter as well. So everybody sees exactly what I send to the parents. So the girls know and the parents know.
Thank you so much. Samantha, anything you want to add on parents? Not that that comes up with you at all, but.
Every day. Parents, I mean, now I'm going to sound like this is number 2. So it's like playing time, but parents are right on the heels of playing time about things for you all as coaches to be thinking about. And I might even nudge my friend Tyra Perry to reconsider that in-person meeting with those 13 newcomers. Parents need to know you're human, right? They do. All we hear, and I'm speaking as a parent now, and I've said this at convention, I have 4 freshmen this year, right? And I have 3 playing sports. So all I hear is like, actually, I got a text today that said, Mom, I'm so tired. This is unsustainable, right? Like, so if I'm just hearing from the kid, I'm getting that version. And the freshman version is really special, right? I mean, it is hard. Freshman year is hard, friends. So, your communication with the parents, I'm just going to encourage you to be yourself, but to not be afraid of it, to humanize yourself, to set expectations for parents. They don't know what to expect. I mean, I'm rolling into stands and I've never been part of this program before, and I don't know what the coach is like, and I'll read the things, but I'll be honest too, my inbox gets backed up. So I know there's some things in there that I need to know about the season, and I haven't looked at it quite yet. And it's important. So parents can be great supporters of your program. They can donate. They can host tailgates. They can host your team on away trips and help your budget. They can do a lot of wonderful things, and they can absolutely take you down. They can write, and if you're not going to listen to them, they'll go to your AD, they'll go to your chancellor, they'll go to HR, they'll go to the Title IX office. I've seen all of it. And so I do want you to have good rapport with your players' parents. Now, they might not love you and they might not like all of your decisions, but if you've made no effort to kind of establish that trust in that relationship and even giving yourself a chance to be understood, then I think you're at risk. right? So I do think that this is an important topic to consider. And it may vary depending on your parents or your school or your level, but at base level, they need to know that you care. And the best way to do that is to hear directly from you.
Thank you, Samantha. And if you think she's fired up now, we haven't even gotten to senior day yet. So just wait for it. Coach Reed, you leave tomorrow, right? You got first road trip coming up. What are some things that you've talked about with your team? Road trip expectations? What rules do you have for the road? What maybe did you used to have rules for? And now you're like, nope, not touching that anymore. How does that work for you?
We just had that tonight. That was our last kind of talk through and reminder. And one of the things when I try to talk about the, rules, quote unquote, / expectations, I really try to frame it up. I have 3 kids, so I think that's been talked about a little bit, is just trying to frame it from my standpoint. One's through high school, one's in 8th grade. So I get to live the parent side. So I try to relate a lot of stories to them, 8th grade basketball parent stories, and how I can be human on that, and half the story. I only get half the story from my own kids. So making sure that they're being, trying to give their parents the full story, or asking what would they say about today's practice? How would you summarize if someone asked you the good and the bad of today? We talked about travel expectations. We try to frame it, a lot of it inside of safety. I told them tonight, there's really nothing more important and stressful to me than their safety, and making sure, and as we go through those, about, little things from not latching your door, getting your door latched where you can come in and out of everyone's door, because you never know who can come in and out of your door. I mean, that's something we talked about tonight. And just traveling with expectations, trying to visit with the family. I think that's been said a couple of times too, on they don't know what the expectations are. And I always tell them they want to do right. They want to follow the rules, but sometimes they don't know. And I think just talking to them about, hey, we have film, we have probably film that you've never watched this much film playing before. So all these things are going to be priorities, but we are going to work on their behalf to try to carve out, be efficient. Tonight we talked a little bit about our pre-ordering and our food, and our, just telling them what we're trying to do that they may not notice when we travel, that is there. Or why do we have 5 minutes post game with the family? The next night we had 30. Well, the game went 30 minutes long and the food's already sitting at the hotel. So we tried to explain some of the behind the scenes of those decisions. And I told them it's just not Coach Reed deciding if we won or lost, if that's 5 or 30 minutes. And so just the safety of, no one else in their rooms. If we have family time, being in the lobby, so I can go to the rooms, or I can go to the lobby and find them. Make sure, just not leaving the property, just conducting themselves and those kind of things. But I did try to frame it up in a way of, this is all the things I would want someone, if my 6th grade daughter was traveling, these are all the things that I would not only be comfortable, but hope they would have. And it's from a safety, not a controlling standpoint. So just trying to stress the behind the scenes of the why we do these things, or why things happen, or why certain timetables are longer than others.
Thank you, Coach. Keely, I'm sure right now, Coach talked about some of those logistics, but that is all up in your brain. You guys have a crazy start to your season, right? I'm sure that itinerary looks interesting, but what are the things that you like to put together to give to the team? What do you like for them to know when it comes to, food stops or hotel stops, or what the days will look like? And what are things that maybe you choose not to share for any particular reason?
I think we're pretty open with them. They get the itinerary just like the staff gets, just like our bus driver gets. Everyone's on the same page. So I put every bit of information I can on there, because as some of you guys know, like, you're just gonna get questioned if you don't. So I'm not hiding anything from them. I'm gonna put it out there. If something changes, I'm gonna let them know. Because we all have those players that are, well, this is what it said, so what are we doing? And it's like, we play an outdoor sport, we have to be a little bit flexible, or something changed, or the delivery driver's late, whatever it might be. But yeah, the opening weekend next weekend's a little bit of a challenge, and that itinerary got turned in today. And yeah, we're working through those same conversations of how much time are they going to have with parents, just because every night we got a 2-hour drive. So just figuring out those logistics and like just what that looks like. So as I've mapped out our itinerary for the weekend, I've voiced my concerns and just different things of like, how is our staff going to handle it? How are we going to handle it with our team? And just, we're upfront and honest. Like, we had those conversations today with a team in a meeting, and I'm not trying to hide anything from them. I'm not trying to, there might be something along the way that's unplanned as far as like if we do well, an ice cream stop or something like that, but those are few and far between as far as like if we do them on the road. So, but I think it's just, I try to give them all the information I can, and there you go. And I think what Coach Reed was just talking about, the safety and security, that's a huge piece for us in hotels. And that was like another conversation that we had with him today as far as our hotel piece. But we have another interesting challenge when we get back to campus after a road trip, because where we park versus where our stadium is and this and that. So starting last year, we actually started to have like a police presence whenever we got back to campus, because of that location and just making sure that the team is safe. And because it's typically nighttime and it might be after midnight when we get back, so just making sure that they're safe and they're aware. And we had all kinds of different trainings and stuff last year that the team came in with the security that we have internal to athletics. They came out and did a conversation with the team of just being self-aware and don't be on your phone when you're walking to your car and everything. So those are definitely huge points for us as well.
Joanna, one thing I'll add, one tip, and I know this isn't silly, but I know Samantha said her list of 1 through. We've had in the past, this is silly, it's just from the snack bag to dinner, like just food, voice in the food choices. I may be the only one that has a group that's so we thought, I mean, we were throwing food away at meals, but there was perception of this and that, and not enough of this at the right times. What we thought they could eat and play on was way different than what they wanted to eat and play on. So 2 years ago, we formed like a food committee. I know this, everyone may have this already, but it was new to us, to where, and we talked about it tonight. So they have a voice of what's in the snack bag, as silly as that sounds, but also a voice in where we're eating for the weekend. Our assistant coach will really ask them for their opinion each week. If I could go back, I would have this 15 years ago, just the food committee, just them having a voice. I don't know, it's changed a lot of what we do, but they just felt like they have a voice in it. And after a sweep, they wanted Oreos in the snack bag, and it has changed. So anyway, that's just a little tip I think has helped us, is just having a food committee to have a voice.
Yeah, I don't think
Nope.
you're alone. I see a lot of nodding heads. Murph, what do you got?
I was going to say, no wonder he's in the Hall of Fame. Shit. I want to play for him.
Principles for everyone. Holly, from your perspective, you think about the travel and you work with a lot of different teams. What are some of the things that you see that can be pain points for whether it's student athletes or parents or coaches that have something to do with team travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the unknown. Like everybody's talked about, you really do have to educate your student athletes. You have to educate the parents, and just make sure that everybody's on the same page, because I think that's what leads to the breakdown of things and can cause some drama, is when people don't really know what's going on. Like, are you allowed in your kids' room? Some parents feel like they should be able to go to their kids' room and hang out with them, and it's like, no, that's their private space with their roommate. And how hard is it for a roommate to be like, no, I don't want your mom to come up here? Well, we're not going to put them in that situation. So just make sure that they are upfront, that they are telling everybody this is where we're at. And sometimes it's the why, because they may think you're just being a stickler, but no. And I know when we traveled, sometimes we would let our student athletes go with parents after a game. I'd say, you know what, talk about budgets. Like, if I didn't have to pay for their food, great. So if we were on a long trip, or we had a late morning the next day, I might be like, hey, if you want to go with your parents to grab something to eat, that's fine. You need to be back at the hotel by 9. And then we would all meet and talk about all of those things, like, hey, we're not going to leave the property, we're not going to do these things. So again, I just think it's all communication and making sure that you're upfront with everybody about what your rules are, and if they want to know why, then you can give them the reasoning why.
Thank you very much. Tyra and Fran, you all aren't going to play at home until the middle of March. You've got 20 games on the road. You've got cross-country flights. You've got all the things. The other part of coming with the travel piece is student athlete welfare, rest and recovery, giving them their time, especially with the schedules you have. What do you do to make sure that your student athletes have the ability to recover from these continuous trips? And is it different now than it was, 5-10 years ago? Coach Troyan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. We really spell out to all of our players that recovery is part of their training, and that it is really, really important that they take all of the right steps, that they're trying to eat right, they're trying to sleep right, that they're getting ahead in their classes, that they're communicating with their professors, doing everything that they need to do. And then when it is their off day, we really do encourage them, to hit the academics really hard kind of on that day, but also to take some time to have a little bit of self-care, whether, go get your nails done, or get a massage, or go with a friend from outside of softball and get a coffee, or go get dinner, or whatever. And we really try to make sure that they use their off time as well as they can. And then I try to get a gauge from all the players on that next day back. How are you feeling? So that we can gauge how hard we can go, in a practice. The fact of the matter is that, as a coach, if you're pretty tired after a long trip, a day or two after, your kids are probably tired as well. And so we talk about kind of four different elements: the PQ, the SQ, the IQ, and the EQ. The PQ is your physical quotient. And, physically, if you're not healthy, you can't really perform. And, the EQ is about relationships. SQ is your spiritual quotient, just meaning that you have a higher purpose. And your IQ is your intellectual quotient. And if any of those are off balance, then you can't perform at the highest level. And if they can't perform at the highest level, I don't look very good, and it's all about me. I'm just kidding about that.
Thanks, Coach. Anybody that knows you knows that's not true. Tyra, what do you have to add?
Oh Lord, I had to learn so much in this area. I'm from the South, so I started my coaching career in the South, and so as I moved into the Midwest region, and all the travel and all those things started to occur, my first couple years, I kind of chased the sun, I guess I'd call it. Your off day, would move and all those things. And eventually I learned to just set an off day. So Monday, we're off on Mondays. We're always off on Mondays. And lo and behold, that's usually the best day of the week. And so it used to bother me. And now I'm just like, okay, and now our players know that they're off. They're able to set their classes and their meetings, and it's easy for them to organize. I mean, I'm at the University of Illinois. They're highly motivated students, so it gives them a chance to really, you know, take care of their business and also do the other things, get a nail appointment, a hair appointment, different things that they want to do. And we encourage that. And I think that's a small thing, but it's something that I had to learn. And I think it's really, really helped us. If we don't know how to do it, you know, by the time the season starts, then one day is not going to make, that big of a difference. So, but that's really helped.
Thank you very much. You talk about the ability to take care of the student athletes. This is always a loaded question for our panelists, but you have to answer it. How are you taking care of yourselves? What are you doing right now that helps you be prepared for the season? Or what do you do on that off day? I know Tyra, she goes to a movie by herself. She just wants to sit by herself and do those things. But Murph, what about you? What are you doing to make sure you're at your best for the season?
I try to go to the gym every day at 6 a.m. But like Tyra said, that's perfect. Monday is our day off. And I encourage the staff as well, because they need time off as well. And I think one of the biggest things that you can do for a team and or staff is just say, hey, get away from softball. You don't need to go to the cage. Like she said, it's not going to go away after just one day off. So take care of yourself, go to class, rehab, whatever you need to do. But the staff also needs to get away, because the worst thing in the world for me would be somebody come up to me and say, I'm burned out. I don't want that at all. I don't want to be that way. And I don't want my staff to be that way. And it's getting tougher and tougher. And everybody on this panel knows that, including Miss Keeley, because she probably works harder than anybody on this panel. And, has to do with a lot of stuff, if you know what I mean. So you need to take time off.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Reed, how about you? What do you do?
This is not a strength of mine, so I have tried to work at it. As my, like I said, my first son is 22 and played, and I didn't do a great job of hitting the sports windows or the moments as well as I could have. So really in the last 2 years, as my middle one now is going through junior high, just trying to make sure that there is some time on that day, reinvest back in him and the family. Because I blinked, the mother one's 22 now and man of the house and knows it all now. So I don't want to miss that window with Gavin. So just making sure if it's his games or as much as we can't even move in the schedule, you know, the perks of being the head coach is trying to make the schedule work. They know Thursdays typically sometimes are earlier nights, so I can be at a 5:30 basketball game. But you know, making sure he comes to the cage with me. Even on practice days, I used to, you know, stress if they would worry if Gavin jumped in and hit BP around with the team, and going back to being a little bit more human or showing the parent side. That's something I've probably done in the last 2 years that I've never done because I thought it was just unprofessional to have my kid in BP. And so just have them around my kiddos a little bit more and try to reinvest on those days and fight the urge to get ahead for the next week.
Very good. Tyra, are you still going to movies? Is that still your jam?
Yes, indeed. And other thing, people that kind of seen me, I have a dog. So I take my little dog everywhere. Same thing that Coach Reed said. I used to think it was super unprofessional, but you know, and it may still, people may still think that, I don't know, but I don't care. He gives me peace. And I think humanizes me a little bit because I'm a little bit straightforward personality. So yeah, I have a dog and therapy. Very fun, very good
Hey,
stuff.
find all the things that work. Holly, how about you when you think about your coaches? How are you helping your coaches develop in this? Because I don't know a coach who says, "Oh, this is easy for me." The high achievers, it's not like that. So how do you help across the board talk to coaches about the importance?
Yeah, I mean, I think living it, you know, I think all of us have gone through where we've tried to be superhuman and just go, 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 go all the time and realize that that wasn't it, and that's not how you're going to be successful. And it's kind of like, you know, on the airplane, they say, you know, make sure that you put your air mask on first before you take care of others. And so that's what I remind them, like, you need to make sure that you're taking time for you. And that may look different for everybody. You know, like we've already talked about here, the different coaches doing different things. Sometimes for me, it was looking at life as seasons. I couldn't get life balance in season, but it was like I knew once season was over from, you know, the end of May until June that I was going to have some time for me. And then I was going to kick it back up for June, July, you know, August was a little, you know, iffy getting ready for a season, but then convention time, you know, it's like, it's nice. You get to go down to convention, you get to learn a lot of new things, and then you can take some time, have some, you know, relax. And that's just kind of what I talked about. So you just have to find what works best, I think, for you and what's going on in your life. I think it's hard, you know, overseeing, like I oversaw women's basketball last year. They go all the time. I mean, like they are on campus, I think all but maybe 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, it just blows my mind how much they're here. And so that's something that we talk about a lot, where it's like, you know, you need to make sure that you're taking time and allowing your student athletes to have time too, because that's a lot of time to be around. So it's just they have to be creative. Some of them go golfing every morning. So they'll get up, they'll go play, you know, 18 holes, and they'll be in the office by 10, but their bucket is full because they got to go up, they got to go out, do their thing, they're ready to go. So it looks different for everybody. And so it's just finding what you know, works for you. I know our softball coach, Christina, she loves to read. So that's what she does when she needs to get away. She goes, she reads a book, gets some of her quality time, gets back into it, and that makes her feel better. So just finding whatever it is that fills your bucket and making sure you take time for that.
Thank you very much. And Keely, question for you, because I feel like operations people and just your support staff in general, they hear everything, right? Like if there's something that you need to know, you go to that person and in the pulse of the team. How do you take the pulse of a team and how do you try to communicate that to the coaches when, you know, hey, it seems like everybody's really tired, or how do you see the coaches doing that just to try to get a grasp when the season is so long?
I think it's we all kind of like have our people on the team, right? Like we each have our groups and stuff. So I think it's like, yeah, I hear probably most because I can sit in the dugout and hear from the whole team and everything. So I think it's just, yeah, taking that information and, you know, kind of whether to take it to the staff or not. It's like, okay, they're tired or they're exhausted, but we're coming up on 3 days off or we're coming up with this. So it's like, yeah, to tell the staff, like make sure that they're aware, like don't keep anything a secret. There's no point for that, but we're all going to come probably to that same conclusion of like, we got a couple days off here coming. So like, let's get through this part and here we go. But I think it's, as far as like the temperature and everything of the team, it just depends on the part of the season, right? Like where we're at now versus where we're at here in a couple months versus where we were at in August. So it's, it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. But I don't know, it's kind of a tough question to ask because I think our team's a little bit, they each have like their person that they go to, right? So like I have the people that come to me all the time and we have a fun, goofy time and different stuff, but there might be a different group that goes to Coach Singh or Coach Z or anybody else. So it's kind of, I feel like I probably touch all of them all the time, but we all kind of, there's some that are a little bit more open with me than others, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one thing, Joanne, I'd say just for new coaches, and I'm still working on this, and I bet every coach is just, if you have that day off or you have that half a day off, I had to work through, you almost, the guilt of getting away from your phone. There would be times that just for the young coaches, don't feel guilty if you have a day or you have an off day. Cause like I said, I had to work through that and I felt guilty if I wasn't every second or at the office at that time, just working through, don't letting the guilt, take the fun out of it or burn you out.
Absolutely. Coach Troyan, just thinking about your start of your season, let's do some of the little things with lineups and pregame talks and postgame talks. And how do you handle the lineup? Do you tell the team in advance? Is it a surprise when you're reading it off from a pregame perspective? And does that change at all throughout the year?
No, we kind of have developed it with the lineup. We've got kind of a protocol that we use. I will talk individually with each player, and kind of set out some expectations for them in terms of what they might expect from a playing time standpoint. Surprises are good on your birthday and your anniversary. Other than that, they're usually not too good. So I don't want the first surprise about not being in the lineup to be, when we're posting the lineup. What I have learned too from my college coach a long time ago is that I post the lineup a couple of hours before the game so that if somebody's going to be disappointed, that it's easier for them to be disappointed and get over it and move on from that, so that that they can be team first, when they really really start their warm up. And then I'm able to communicate with them because as an athlete there were times that I was in the lineup all the time, but as a college basketball player, I was a 30-30-30 player. I got in when we were up by 30, down by 30, and never more than 30 seconds left. So I can empathize with them in terms of playing time. And at that time, I thought I should be in the starting lineup. So I understand what they're feeling. And kind of like what Murph said earlier, you talk to them, you communicate with them, you want them to want the playing time, but you got to give them the path to be able to do that, and give them help develop an action plan with them that will allow them to get some playing time.
I've
Thank
asked
you. Yeah, Murph.
I've asked pitchers who wants to know and how long before who's starting, and almost all of them want to know the night before. So like we go to Arizona, we have 5 games, 2, 2, and 1 on Sunday. I will tell the first 3 games who's the starting pitcher in the first 3. And then Saturday, I will tell who's the starting pitcher, or I think it's before, the starting pitcher on Sunday, Saturday night. Position players, not really before the line or before the first pitch is thrown. That's how I've done it from the beginning. We do a thing we're going to do maybe Sunday, and I could send it to you if anybody wants it, but it's called a Get to Know Me sheet. And it has about 12 questions. And what's your favorite pitch to hit? What's your favorite execution? What's your least favorite execution? What's your worst spot in the lineup? who's your first choice to pinch hit? And then they have to write a starting lineup. So it says, if we play today, and there's a lineup card attached, tell me the 10 that are in the lineup today. And you can include yourself, that's fine. And it's just I think, and the coaches are the only ones that know. So it's private between the kid and the coaches. And it's just and I just say, hey, I want to see where we're at. Where does everybody else feel like we're going? And some years it's like we had a catcher one year and she was 9 for 9 with what I had. And it's one of the very few times that somebody was like that, and she was on the money. So, but it's interesting to see where they put themselves as well.
For sure. Murph, how about the post-game talk? Do you do post-game talks? Do you wait? Has it changed over the years?
Yeah. It's very little. It's a waste of time. So don't talk for an hour, especially after a loss. Don't do that. You know, we have to turn the lights off at the Rhodes House because the opposing team is still talking. You know, the SID is like, please, I want to get the hell out of here. Right, Keely? I mean, golly. So keep it short and simple, because if you lose, everybody probably realizes what happened. You don't need to harp on it. The only person that's probably feeling any better after that is you, as the coach. The kids aren't. So I wait until, like, especially if it's a Sunday, Monday's the day off, then you could talk about it on Tuesday. So everybody's got some time to relax, get over it, 48 hours. Then it's not as like fresh in your head. But right after, it's really a waste of time in my mind.
Tyra, how about you when it comes to, lineup announcements or post-game talks? What are some things that maybe you're doing to communicate with the team?
I probably could be better at that. So I was again taking notes as Murph was talking, but I think it depends on my team. It depends on the makeup of the team, and if we have a bunch of veterans and like this year we have a bunch of newcomers, I think I do need to be a little bit more conscious and intentional about how they may feel and how they may take things. But generally, we just try to look at what the team dynamic is, and if they're affected by these things, or if it's a situation like we had one year, we had a bunch of fifth years and seniors, and everybody knew who was playing, so it wasn't really that big of a of a of a deal. And then, as everyone has said already, too, just no surprises. When we're doing drills, there's certain drills that we set the defense, or we set the lineup, so they're getting a preview into what we're thinking while we're working those drills. And there's other drills where people just can kind of flow in and out, and so some of that tells you what they're thinking also, like who gets to the first round of drills, like who shows up and gets into that spot first. We kind of take note of that, but I'm always thinking about it and always trying to figure out what's best, and I do think it changes from year to year.
Joanne, I'll add on that. I agree totally with Tyra about year to year. But one of the things I have found is because we have a lot of bus rides, average from 6 to 2 hours. And after we take that gas station stop, Buc-ee's, whatever, once we get back on the bus, that is a really good time to shove everybody to the back of the bus, 2 to a seat across the aisle. You have 4. And then we have a little meeting. And by that time, I have time to digest everything. They do. And it's not as biting as it could be right after the game. And I think it's a really good teaching moment where everybody is tight quarters. All eyes are on the coaches. You see all the eyes in front of you because they're sitting right there on the bus. And to me, that's a great opportunity to teach some really good lessons.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. When you are thinking about practices and the way practices change, so, Coach Reed, you start gameplay tomorrow. You talked a little bit about the inter squad on Monday, but what were things that were really important to you 2 weeks ago in practice that won't be as important to you in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think, these 2 weeks that Coach Perry was saying, I think it kind of goes back to the lineup. Some of the pairings, the setting the lineups, whether it's bunt coverages by team, kind of team 1, team 2, team 3. We don't call it that, of course, but setting the situation teams. So I think that is something we've done a lot to help establish some of those roles. Like Coach said, maybe a preview. of so many reps. That's changed in the last week or two, and some of our subbing pattern or things like that. So we call it red, white, and blue. And so red's going to get a few more of the reps. White's going to get a few less than blue and those things. But it may be red, blue, maybe red second position too. So I think less of that going forward as far as having to pair up and inner squad is much of that. Obviously, early trying to get some live at bats for timing and velocity. You hope they hit over the break. But did they hit with velocity or hit live or other than front toss? So some of that will change for us, and I think what happens is early here we're working everyone the same. We're preparing everyone at the same time. Now, once you get into the season, you got those that are getting the live reps and those who don't. So that will change. And the inner squad is one example of that. But on Mondays may be super light, and we may do some of the things, but the reps will change if we're trying to rest. So us, it's just managing the workload from the weekend and trying to even those out. That will change a lot from one group to the other as far as starters and non-starters.
Thank you very much. Coach Troyan, how about you? And even in terms of what you're focusing on now, a lot of indoor practice this time of year, and then what you can focus on later.
Yeah, honestly, this time of the year for us, we're trying to get as many live reps as we possibly can, both for our pitchers, and for our hitters. And that's catch-22 situation because if you do a true scrimmage, then you got a lot of standing around. So, like for example, today we had a practice where we had three or four different groups rotating through with a little bit of live defense. They got to hit live in the cage, and all of our pitchers rotated through. Some, live on our indoor space, what we would call our field, and some were live in the cage. And we try to keep things really moving as much as we can. And for us, anytime that we can get outside at all, we'll do it. So, I mean, it was cold and windy today, but we took them outside for the first 45 minutes of practice, and we did a bunch of communication stuff, throws to bases, cuts to different bases, and then once you start playing, then can figure out where your greatest opportunities for growth are. And then we really try to look and figure out with each team, and each team's a little bit different. We may need to work on first and thirds a little bit more. We may need to work on communication, more. We may need to go back and do a little bit more live work. So we try to assess the situation, based on the evaluations that we make, how we perform each weekend.
I think Coach has a good point there. I think it becomes you're trying to cover. You have this checklist that we keep talking about. You're trying to cover every situation, and then once you start playing, it becomes reactionary. Your practices are, and I tell my assistants, we lay out a plan for a week or two, and for their position, they may have a plan. But once we play or we go live or we start playing the season, if that plan's not adjusting based on what you're seeing in the game, I don't feel like that's, I tell them that we're not truly coaching, we're just planning. You have to be able to see what's happening in the game, see where this particular team is strong or weak. And then, so those practice plans start being written based on how the performance was the weekend, what areas we need to spend the most. And that's one thing I stress with the assistants is, I know you've got this week planned out for your outfielders, but make sure, is any of it changed based on what you saw yesterday and not just, just a plan. Things have to be able to adjust and evolve.
Coach Murphy, I know you've talked about that with the amount of times people spend on first and thirds, right? I think that was one of my favorite Pat Murphy, Jackie Joseph conversations of my life. But how does that work with you, and how do you, because you have a great checklist. For our members that are on here, go to your coaching tools, and then charts and forms package, and right there, first one is Alabama's checklist. But how does it change for you, when you've been doing it for a while? Sometimes you think you got it figured out, and then you realize you don't have anything figured out, right?
No, it's so weird. Were you at practice today? Because guess what we practiced?
You
First
didn't
and
do
thirds.
first and thirds.
Yes, we did. God. And yeah, and probably for way too long, because I said to the team, first off, how many times do you think this happens in a year? And to me, it just doesn't happen very often. And it's like, why do you spend all this time on first and third if it doesn't happen that much? But anyway, that's for another day. And that was a great talk. That was a great with Jackie Joseph, because I do the talk and I talk about it. And then somebody in the crowd says, Jackie, Coach Murphy says he never practices first and third. And I think her direct response was, because he has the damn pitchers that I don't have, and they don't get on base. So I think, like Mike says, it changes every week, because there's something comes up in a game and you're like, oh my God, we didn't cover that, you know? And I literally have that preseason checklist taped up right next to my computer. So as we go through all the practices, and we have, 5 left before we play. And you know, and then you start to get nervous, because you're like, oh God, did we do this enough? Do we do this? You know, do they know this? You know, when you bunt, does the runner realize she cannot go backwards between home and first? You know, those little things that are going to happen. So I keep that checklist. And then as the practices go along, like I think Friday is going to be a competitive, like everything is a game with a incentive, and it's 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 8 versus 8, whatever it might be. And for like 2.5 hours, all we're going to do is competitive drills, but there's always a winner and a loser, and there's an incentive to win. And I think as the season kind of gets closer to game time, they love that. They love anything competitive, and it's things that we're going to do in a game. You know, it'll be execution stuff offensively, and you know, things like that. But and then as the season goes along, it becomes more and more offense, and probably 65 to 70% offense, and then 30% defense as we go along.
Thank you.
This time of the year, if I could just add in right as well, I just had a conversation with you know, my captains and my seniors after practice today. You know, hey, what do we need to work on for you guys to feel as confident as possible going into our first games? And they'll let you know. You know, and you know, they brought up first and thirds and rundowns and everything that we would have come up, but it gives them ownership in kind of framing things. And I think it's a good way to get input, and you know, if they've played long enough, they know what they need to work on as well. And it's good for them to have to articulate that.
For sure. Switching gears a little bit, Holly, I want to come back to you. What are some things the coaches you work with, and it can be any sport, but what are some things you appreciate from head coaches of when they come to you, how often they talk to you, when do you want to know of a potential problem? How do they build relationships with you that can help throughout the year to celebrate and to be proactive on something that might not be a positive?
Yeah. I think for me, since I started here, I've only been here at South Dakota State for a year and a half. I started meeting with my coaches, whatever they felt comfortable with, biweekly, weekly, monthly, just to get to know them. And that was the first couple of meetings is, you know, tell me about you, tell me about your goals, tell me about, you know, different things. How can I best help you? Because, you know, I don't want to come in and start shoving things down their throat and doing things the way I think they should be done, because it's not about me, it's about them and what can I do to help them. And all of my coaches are different. So this year I oversee equestrian, volleyball, women's soccer, and softball, of course. And so they all need something different. They're all in different stages. You know, I've got a coach that's been coaching for over 20 years. I've got a coach that this is her first coaching job. And so they're all in various stages. And so it's really fun for me because it's never the same. And honestly, it's like coaching. You know, you got to figure out as a coach how to coach your student athletes. How do they respond? What things can you do for them? How can you help them? And that's kind of how it is with the coaches. So I think it's just knowing like, hey, when you come in, like I'm a problem solver and I want to help you solve this problem. So I want you to feel comfortable that you can bring anything to me and we're going to work together and figure out what the solution might be, or how can we celebrate together, or, you know, what have you. And I just think, you know, every coach is different. They'll bring different challenges to you, different things. And it's helped for me to be a coach. So I've been in a lot of situations that they've been in, you know, like, you know, something happened on social media and somebody said something bad. And, you know, is this going to affect my job? Is this going to affect this? And so it's just talking through, how do we deal with that? What do we do? How are conversations going to happen with those situations? Or it's, I have my first meet. Oh my gosh, am I ready? Is the team ready? Can I do this? You know, what am I doing? And so it's just giving them a little pep talk, making sure they're good. So, you know, it just depends on what they need at the time. but hope that answered what you were asking.
Thank you. Perfect. Yes. Keely, we haven't talked about this much at all, but just what are some of your favorite ways to be the most efficient in the role in the spring? I mean, coaches can feel like they're pulled in so many different directions. So a lot of our, D2, D3 head coaches, high school head coaches, they're also ops and, right? So what are some of your favorite tips and tricks of, being efficient and being able to be proactive?
Start early, obviously, like that's the easy one on the table, right? So I've already mapped out like next week's trip is planned, just got a couple things left to cross off the list. Already working on, second week as far as when our first home tournament, the food for that. So just getting ahead and when you can, like it's all gonna get 100 miles an hour here real quick. So just using those things. And I didn't get to answer the question of what do you do on the Monday off day because it's not an off day for me. It's kind of on purpose for me because that's the day I can get the most done and most cranked out in a shorter amount of time because no one else is in the office. So I get in the office early before anybody else because no one else is there. Half the time the lights turn off on me because I haven't moved. So that's my reminder to get up and move. But I think just trying to get ahead, having checklists definitely help. I've been doing it a little bit long enough now to kind of have the flow of how we operate, specifically at Texas. But the other part with Mondays is that everyone in our department knows that Mondays are our off day. So of course that's the day that they want to have meetings and talk about whatever else is going on in their world that affects us, right? So typically the marketing meetings, the, what's coming up for the week, if it's a home series or something like that, that all happens typically on Monday. And then I can take it and, spread the information to the staff as needed. But I think it's just getting ahead. It's for me, it's the checklist. Like I said earlier, like I live in Excel. So it's kind of like I have templates for everything. So it's just kind of like making sure we're hitting everything. We work with Anthony Travel at Texas, so I'm always in constant communication with my travel agent. I've probably talked to her probably 4 or 5 times since last Friday because names on our trip for week 3 names were due last week. So making sure that those were right, got them back. Oh, the Southwest messed up about 50% of the names and who knows, and I'm like double checking myself because I'm like, I know it's right. So what happened? So just trying to make sure that those things don't happen for our future trips, and just being in communication with the people that help me on the backside of things.
Thank you very much. I alluded to it and would be remiss if we didn't go to it, but Samantha, we have talked in so many calls about senior day and senior day being a potential pitfall for coaches in a variety of ways. So it's not even on our brains yet, probably, but I know you're going to say it needs to be. So hit us with your advice for senior day, and then everybody get ready. We're going to come around the horn for some parting words of wisdom on the topic of your choice, but you're up first, Sam.
So senior day, I feel bad because that convention, I feel like I came down a little hard on senior day, and I want to be clear, like I do love celebrating, longevity and achievement and honoring people who contributed to the program. And circling back to the playing time point, this is a way too to honor those kids who maybe didn't do a lot on the field in the spotlight, but still were really important to your programs. My concerns about senior day, really center on how big it has become in certain programs. I had a coach who had to cancel a game because of weather, which I know you all know well. But the parents had meltdowns because, the hotel ballroom had been reserved for senior day and what were they going to do? And it's like, we've lost the plot, right? Like we've really, so what can you do now? I think is start having conversations with your seniors about how you're going to honor them, what makes sense for you and your program, and then making sure, again, as we talked about parents, so we're really like tying all these loops together, making sure that the parents are involved and understand senior day or the senior celebration, and also be open to maybe doing it differently, right? And maybe it's just become so big, and that maybe we can, rethink it, whether it's one game that you honor each senior. The pitfalls I'm concerned about are the size and the scope, and then the game that you do it, which is your last home game, which counts for you to get, into some tournament or home, host at home. And so there's all this pressure plus all the emotion that comes with, let's be honest, their careers probably ending, right? And what that feels like for your athletes, for your team, for the families, and just being aware and not like shelve it, and then all of a sudden April, May comes around and it's like, bigger than life. So I am a fan. I just really want us to kind of manage it better so that expectations are met and it can also, serve its purpose.
Murph, I know you do this differently and it might have been the first to do it a little bit differently. Do you want to share what you do?
We had 6 seniors one year, and of course, our senior day was against Auburn. And one of the seniors, and I coach with my heart more than my head, so of course, everybody started, okay? And one of the seniors got up 3 times with the bases loaded and struck out 3 times. And every time she'd go into the bathroom dugout and cry, every single at bat. So after that, it was like, nope, we're not going to do this. So now we do a individual senior day, like Sam recommended, starting like February 21st. So our first home tournament, there's 2 senior days that weekend. So their families know ahead of time that Friday, February 21st is Joanna Lane Day. And we do all kinds of stuff for you. The next day is Samantha Ekstrand Day. 2 weeks later is Tyra Perry Day. A day later is Holly Van Kleiman Day. And we just do that for 5 seniors this year. So we're done by, I think, March 13th. So all the anxiety, because they all think they need to perform for all their friends and family, okay? They all think that. And I try to, and then if one person does not do well, it's only one person in the lineup. It's not 6, which happened. So I feel like it's the best case scenario. And usually what happens, and it's crazy, if it's Tyra Perry Day, Tyra Perry's going to hit a freaking home run. I mean, it's like, it happens every single year. So take it and run with it.
Thank you, Coach. All right, we're going to go around the horn. I'm just going to go in order of my screen so that I know I don't miss anybody. But give us your thoughts of what are you doing right now in the preseason that you really feel like will make a difference at the end of the season, whether it's for your team, your culture, your administrative relationships, whatever it might be. Give that piece of advice that you have at the front of your mind. So, Coach Troyan, you are first on my screen.
We have our players, they have journals, and every couple of weeks, and we have it on the calendar, so they make sure that they do it. They've got to take a photo of what we call their well, better, how. What are you doing really well? What can you do a little bit better? And how can we collaborate to make your wells as good as they can be and your betters better? And it sets the stage for us to be able to be collaborating with them because I've coached a long, long time. I haven't taken one swing as a college softball player or thrown one pitch. It's them. So remembering it's about your players, putting them in the position, so that they can become the best version of themselves, and forcing them to communicate a little bit. And by doing this, it gives them an opportunity to really write out, think about, what they really need to work on. And then we have an ongoing dialogue of what's going well, what they can do better, and how we can work on it together.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Reed, you're next.
Well, 2 things. One for the staff is if you don't have like Google Sheets shared among your staff, or that I know that's old news to everyone, but it came to Coach Reed not too long ago. So our whole staff can see the practice plan, even if your staff is just focused on their area. If they can go into the Google Doc and see the practice plan being built or changed and really get a grasp of the whole thing, that helps in our development of our assistant coaches really learn more than just their area if they can see that and have a shared document. And then kind of post-game, post-practice that I have changed. We still talk a little bit after the game. It's not an hour or anything, but I used to have my list of everything I thought that went wrong or we need to work on. So I really came to them now, and even post-practice. Hey, give me your positives. Give me your things we need to focus on at practice. And I let them give me the list of the game. 95% of the time, the list is everything I had on the list. And sometimes it's even more some things that I missed or a great play that I missed. So I think versus them telling us what we're going to work on, it lands better if it's coming from them. And I think most of the time they see it, like Coach Murph said, they see it. And if they can, if you can allow them to come up with that, it's not you just telling them what they did wrong. It's the team coming up with what they saw and praising each other and just more investment. That's something I have done better later in my career than I did earlier, for sure.
Thank you, Coach Keeley. You're next.
Yeah, I think my role obviously a little bit different than the X's and O's and stuff. My biggest role and my biggest hope in my role on the staff is that I let the coaches coach. So let me take care of all the other stuff. Let me take care of the behind the scenes. Let me take care of, the setting up some meeting that somebody thinks that they need to have, and it could have been an email. Let me take care of those things. Let me take those off your plate, and let you guys plan the game plan and let us execute it. Because at the end of the day, I want a natty too. I want that too, just as much as they do, but my strengths are different than their strengths. And so let me play to mine and let's play to yours. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Holly, what do you have for us?
Kind of building off what Keely said, I think it's knowing that you don't have to do it all, knowing that you have a staff for a reason. And so, your strengths are going to be one thing, and you're going to lean on everybody on your staff or your administration or whoever it may be to help you with things. But just don't think that you have to go in there and know everything about everything. You have to be able to rely on your staff and the people around you, because that's what they're there for. You don't want to be the person that has to be the know-it-all, that has to be in charge of every little single thing. Just make sure that you're doing the best that you can and that you're helping those around you do the best that they can. And just kind of stay in your own lane. I mean, that's the biggest thing, because it's really easy to go down that path where you're getting in everybody else's lanes and then it doesn't end up very well. So trust your staff, trust yourself, and just do what you're best at.
Thank you very much. Coach Perry.
Just sitting here thinking, just by and large, talking about the parts that are like group project and shared responsibility. And we break our team into groups. We have an academic group. We have a health and wellness, personal brand, social media, and then we hear from them, give them practice time to sit and meet and come up with an agenda. We have a fall agenda, a spring agenda, and they just talk about those areas. Some questions we get asked, on the academic piece, as coaches, we maybe know a surface answer, but those guys know, which tutor to go to or how to schedule this or that. So they come up with a list, and we organize ourselves and give them an opportunity to have a say-so in the program. And they select leaders from each group, and that becomes our leadership council. And just really try to empower our players to have a voice in our program and what we're talking about, and success. We're going to have success. It's going to take all of us together, and I think that's really helped us organize and grow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Samantha, anything you have that you want to add?
I'll just say you all have the best job in the world, and you're about to coach a season. I mean, how lucky are you? You have a team, you have games. I mean, this is the fun. It's hard. It can be long, but don't lose sight. My dad would always say the joy's in the journey. So just keep looking for that joy and realize you really do have an amazing job leading your team. So wish you all the best and here for you whenever you need.
All right. And that leaves Murph, your cleanup hitter. What do you have for us? No pressure.
I would say trying to teach the value of affirmation to everybody on the team, because when you affirm the behavior that you love in somebody genuinely, you can't turn around and be jealous of that person when she gets the game-winning home run. You cannot, because first graders know when their teacher is fake. So when you affirm the behavior that you love in somebody, you have to be genuine. And when they start to do that with each other, the sky's the limit for a team. And some of the girls have gotten really, really good at it, and it's fun to see. But we've also gotten rid of jealousy and envy on the team because of that.
Very cool. Thank you, Coach. For those of you that are asking, I will ask Coach Murphy to send me that document that he referred to, and we will send that out to all the registered emails. A lot of people want that sheet. You have Coach and the lineup card, so we'll send that out to them. This will be in your coach's box. You will have access to this in the webinars in a couple of days. So if you want to watch it again, you can feel free to do so. If there's follow-up questions that you have, take a chance and email a panelist. I bet they email you back. You never know what connection you can make, what you can learn. So go ahead and put yourself out there. I'm happy to help you connect if need be. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for investing in yourself, your growth. It will exponentially help your team and your program. And we are just thrilled to have you with us as members of the NFCA. If you need anything, we're here all year long. So don't hesitate to reach out. We will see you next time. And I hope you have a very safe and healthy and successful 2025. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.